If you're tuning in expecting to see Antiques Roadshow right now, you might have forgotten to turn back the clock an hour. I think we all know the drill at this point, though. Daylight saving time ends around this time every year, leading to the inevitable dread of the early nightfall and inevitable debate about why we do this in the first place. But what does the time change mean to our sleep health, and does the earlier sundown have an ongoing effect on our mood? Joining us to discuss the end of daylight saving are Dr. James Wyatt, a clinical sleep disorder specialist at Rush University Medical Center, and Dr. Sabra Abbott, a sleep medicine specialist at Northwestern Medicine. Welcome both of you to Chicago tonight. Dr. Abbott, remind us why this time change exists in the first place.
That's an excellent question, and there's a lot of lore about this, whether we would actually save on electricity costs, for example, if we extended that evening daylight in the summertime. It seems like it hasn't really held out, though, and I think for most of us it just causes a hassle twice a year.
And we talk about this every time, 2 times a year. Let's look at some of the statistics here, effects on health here. According to a 2014 study from Open Heart, there was a 24% increase in heart attacks when people lost 1 hour to spring forward, lost 1 hour sleep that is, a 21% decrease in heart attacks when it was time to turn back the clock. So Dr. Wyatt, can you explain these connections here to turning back or turning forward the clock and health?
Sure. So fundamentally, the one in the spring is the harder one, where you're essentially losing an hour of sleep because that clock gets moved forward in the middle of the night. So there's the sleep deprivation that happens acutely that night. But another thing that happens is you're waking up at an earlier time relative to your body's what we call circadian system. That's the 24-hour clock in the brain that tries to help us stay asleep at night and be awake during the daytime. So you're trying to be awake with sleep deprivation, but also at an earlier clock time. And then that next night, you're trying to also go to bed that hour earlier when the circadian system still thinks it's daytime. So it's trying to keep you awake. So fundamentally, this is putting more strain on your body. That's why we have the increase in heart attacks and strokes, a heart rhythm problem called atrial fibrillation. You have this 6% increase in fatal car accidents in the week following daylight saving time switch in the spring. You also have slower marathon running performance.
Wow. But, you know, Dr. Abbott, it's not unlike flying to the East Coast or flying to a different time zone, or say you're flying overseas. I mean, there are different things that are recommended to do to mitigate some of those changes. So how should folks mitigate the effects of the time change?
Yeah, so our bodies really depend on the strong signal of light to tell us what time of day it is. And so one of the best ways that people can adapt this time of year is to try to get just a little bit of extra light in the evening. And that kind of goes counter to a lot of the advice you normally get from sleep specialists. But right now, that light in the evening is going to help give you that extra little push to move you that hour later, so you get sleepier a little bit later and you wake up a little bit later.
Dr. Wyatt, we hear so many folks complaining now about the early sunset, usually before 5 this time of year. Are there tangible connections between that and people's mental or physical health?
Yeah, it's more the opposite direction we're concerned about. So one of the things that's recommended by consensus of the major organizations, such as the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, what we prefer is to stay on standard time year round. The point there is we want to favor morning light exposure so that you get that critical signal in the morning that helps align, or what we call entrain, your body's 24-hour clock. But it's also the time of day that's much more important to get light exposure to prevent or to reduce the frequency of things like seasonal affective disorder, also known as winter depression. So it's that morning light that's far more important for overall health than evening night. Although Dr. Abbott, of course, is correct that during this change now, when we've fallen back in the fall, that's the time we need a little bit of evening light for a couple of days to delay our rhythms later. But fundamentally, it would be a much healthier, safer thing to stay on this standard time that we just switched to year-round.
Dr. Abbott, is that sort of a consensus among medical professionals that it's just healthier overall to stay on one standard time, 365 days a year?
Absolutely, and I think for 2 reasons. So first of all, like you cited, all of those statistics for everything that can happen with the spring daylight savings time switch. But then also in terms of the best alignment between your internal clock and the environment, like Dr. Wyatt said, it really is much healthier to get more of that light in the morning than in the evening. And there are a lot of studies showing that, for example, if you live on the western side of the time zone where you are getting less of that morning light, there are actually higher rates of cancer. Depression rates go up if you lack that morning light. And so we do think as a community, the sleep field feels like standard time year round is really the best approach.
Now, Dr. Wyatt, both of you are medical professionals, not politicians, but what needs to be done to actually get political leaders to eliminate the time change? They talk about it every year, but nothing seems to happen.
Well, there's actually a threat going on, Paris, right now in the opposite direction, which is Senator Marco Rubio from Florida is proposing what he calls the Sunshine Protection Act. And he's proposed this since 2018, trying to adopt daylight saving time year round, which fundamentally doesn't agree with the circadian and sleep science. But what has to happen is the federal government has to act. So there are many states right now that have already passed legislation trying to adopt daylight saving time year round, not standard time, which we would like them to do. But they can't change that on their own. The federal government has to approve them doing that. And they'd have to change the law because right now, standard time is the law and daylight saving time is the exception. So they'd have to essentially fundamentally rewrite that.
And it sounds like what you're saying is doctors believe that standard time should be the standard, and politicians and others are saying daylight saving time should be the standard because it gives you that extra hour of sunlight at the end of the evening. Dr. Abbott, am I correct there in this characterization?
That is correct. And I think oftentimes when I discuss this with people, there's a misperception that somehow switching to daylight savings time year round is going to give them more light, but really it just shifts the time of day that you're exposed to it.
All right, a lot to think about here, and our thanks to Drs. James Wyatt and Dr. Sabra Abbott. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a great evening.